خواتین و حضرات السلام علیکم، میں ہوں آپ کا ہوسٹ آن نقوی اور ہم آپ کی خدمت میں حاضر ہوئے ایک دفعہ پھر امید کے ایک نئے ایپیسوڈ کے ساتھ۔ ہم امید کرتے ہیں کہ آپ ہمیں اپنی آراء سے ضرور آگاہ کریں گے۔ ہمارا ای میل ایڈریس آپ اپنی اسکرینز پر دیکھ رہے ہوں گے، umeed@aaj.usa.tv۔ خواتین و حضرات، 9/11 کا ایک ایسا واقعہ ہے جس نے پوری دنیا کو ہلا کے رکھ دیا۔ بالعموم پوری دنیا اور بالخصوص امریکہ میں رہنے والے مسلمانوں کے لیے یہ واقعہ بہت ساری مشکلات لے کر آیا۔ پاکستانی کمیونٹی اور مسلم کمیونٹی جو کہ نیو یارک میں رہ رہی تھی، ان کو بہت ساری تکالیف کا سامنا کرنا پڑا۔ کچھ کو اپنی جابوں سے ہاتھ دھونے پڑے، کچھ کو پاکستان اور باقی دنیا کے ان کے ہوم کنٹریز میں واپس بھیج دیا گیا۔ جو خواتین حجاب لے کے بازار جاتی تھیں یا اسکول میں جو بچے تھے، انہیں بہت سارے ڈسکرمنیٹو ایٹیٹیوڈز اور آوازوں کا سامنا کرنا پڑا۔ اس چیز کو زائل ہوتے ہوئے ابھی تک اس کے اثرات قائم ہیں اور شاید کافی عرصہ لگے۔ بہت ساری ایسی این جی اوز ہیں ناظرین جو اس سلسلے میں بہت کام کر رہی ہیں، اور آج جس این جی او کو ہم نے یہاں پہ دعوت دی ہے وہ ہے کیئر نیو یارک، اور بیسیکلی ان کا جو مقصد ہے وہ ایسے تمام اثرات کو زائل کرنا اور مسلم کمیونٹی کے لیے ایسی تمام مشکلات جو انہیں روزمرہ زندگی میں جس کا سامنا کرنا پڑتا ہے اس کو حل کرنے میں وہ مدد دے رہے ہیں۔ آئیے میں آپ کا آج کے مہمانوں سے آپ کا تعارف کروا دیتا ہوں۔ میرے آج کے پہلے مہمان ہیں مسٹر زیاد رمضان، جو کہ پریزیڈنٹ ہیں، فارمر پریزیڈنٹ آف کیئر نیو یارک، اینڈ ہی از اے بورڈ ممبر۔ السلام علیکم اینڈ ویلکم ٹو دا شو۔
وعلیکم السلام ورحمۃ اللہ، اٹس اے پلیزر ٹو بی ہیئر۔
تھینک یو۔ ہماری دوسری مہمان ہے مس سعدیہ، جو کہ ڈائریکٹر آپریشنز ہیں کیئر نیو یارک کے لیے۔ مس سعدیہ، ویلکم ٹو دا شو۔
السلام علیکم، thank you for having
You're
me.
welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll flip over to English because our distinguished guests, they are more comfortable in replying my questions in English, so I hope you bear with us. Hi, Mr. Ziad, how are you doing?
Very well, and yourself?
Thank you very much for being on the show. So, start up with how CARE was created and what was the need felt to create this organization. Can you please throw some light on that?
Yeah, in the 1990s, CARE was created by a gentleman by the name of Nihad Awad. Him and a friend of his, Ibrahim Hooper, who was a convert to Islam, started noticing that the media was attacking Muslimin and Islam in a very, unfair way, and they were dispelling information about Islam that was incorrect. This was the aftermath of the 1994 First World Trade Center bombing.
Okay.
And it just seemed like the atmosphere around Islam and Muslimin was becoming very difficult. And they wanted to create an organization that would help create clarity about what Islam truly represents, and make sure that they create an organization that can help people like the media and elected officials and governments and schools really depict Islam in its correct form and not the incorrect form that it was being.
So what is your mission statement?
I'll let Sadia take care of it.
Yeah, Sadia, can you tell our audience what is the mission statement of CARE New York?
Well, CARE is a chapter of the largest American Muslim civil rights organization, and our mission is to empower American Muslims to be a leading advocate in combating Islamophobia, erasing combating, the issues that are around, and as well as challenging the misunderstanding of Islam. And so we do programs that work on this as well as educating American Muslims.
Mrs. Yad, is this all over America or just the New York?
Yeah.
You have different chapters?
Yeah, CARE is a national organization, and we have 35 chapters around the United States, and we have, I believe, 1 or 2 in Canada.
Okay.
And so this has been, it's very spread from Texas to California to Florida to New York. It's all over the place.
So would you like to go over what are your signature projects or how you distribute your work? How you are working day to day?
Sure. Basically, there's an office in practically every state, and the need arises from potentially that particular state having a lot of discrimination issues or negative issues or anti-Islam issues coming from that area, and a chapter opens up there, and they have an executive director and staff. And the basic goal is to communicate with the community, with the schools, with government, with elected officials, and to be a conduit for correct information about Islam. Also, you want to be a receiving office for a lot of discrimination complaints coming from Muslimin. For example, if a woman wearing a niqab or a hijab is not allowed to ride on a bus because a bus driver says, "I don't want you to ride on this bus because you're a Muslim." We receive that complaint, and we would call the bus company, and many times they have disciplinary actions, apologies to the people, and sensitivity training for all of the bus drivers. Those are real cases that we've had. So, and if there are actually legal cases where attorneys have to get involved, then what we do is we give them out to different attorneys and who we think have been very good in helping our community in order to resolve situations.
Okay, so what I understood is that if CARE is working all over America, and if I ask you to rate the worst state where Muslims have the discriminative attitude from the people or by the government, what do you like to tell us?
Well, I'm New York centric. I've been in New York for over 40 years, and I have seen how the climate of negativity towards Islam has really, really increased. Obviously, 9/11 has not helped us here in New York. We're the center of all of that.
Yep.
And also, I mean, you know, frankly, when the city government, including the mayor and the New York Police Department, engage in a surveillance program on all the Muslimin in New York, you know, in their workplace, in their masajid, in their community, it makes you think that this is definitely the epicenter of where discrimination against Islam really is, because it's not just whether at the personal level between individuals or maybe something by a teacher or at workplace, but it was literally the government of New York had paid, you know, used our tax dollars to surveil our very own community.
Okay.
And it turned up absolutely nothing.
So what normally New York is taken like a multicultural city and
Absolutely.
multi-ethnic, I mean, a lot of room for every community. So what I understood is that New York has the highest discriminatory attitude towards the Muslim citizens. That's what you can say that?
I would say like individual incidences, you know, you can't really say because many of them are not reported throughout the country. There are some states that are so conservative that, you know, Muslims might feel that it's okay for people to discriminate against them because of the conservative ideals of that surrounding. But that's always unacceptable because, you know, what we live under is a code of law called the Constitution. And we have an amendment, the First Amendment, that the forefathers of this nation created, which guarantees the freedom of religion. And I believe that's why many Muslimin like to come to America from all over the world, because the one guarantee that they know that they have is they're not going to be persecuted because of their faith. And so that isn't always the case. And I think that New York has been one of the, unfortunately, one of the, even though it's considered one of the most liberal states
that's what
in the United States, because of the experience that we exclusively had, which is 9/11, has been very angry in many times, and I think it's taking time. It's been over 10 years, and the fact that we still have this conversation is probably an issue, but I do think that it does take time for an issue like this to go away. Remember, the Japanese never attacked, you know, continental United States, the Germans never did, and so all the world wars, the Vietnam, and everything. So when Muslimin hit land in America, that really created a high consciousness of anti-Islam, and that's something that we as American Muslims experience sometimes on a daily basis, unfortunately, but we're also working. We're also working with the governmental agencies and law enforcement and communities and schools and interfaith with other religious leaders and groups to say this is not what is best about America. Our individual religious freedoms are what makes this country great.
Okay. Ms. Sadia, coming over to you. You being Director of Operations for New York, what do you think is the most concerning area for you as far as the Muslim women when they go out, they're working? So what kind of complaints you get?
So we've been getting cases of discrimination in the workplace. So some situations have been where sisters who wear hijab, they would be asked by their employers to either wear a smaller hijab or even take off their hijab or niqab. So we would work with them to make sure that their employer knows the rights when it comes to religious rights in the workplace. And another area is the youth. So CARE New York is working heavily, and a lot of the other chapters is working with young people, because young people are being victims of discrimination. They're being called terrorists. They're being, you know, their hijab is being called...
You mean in schools and colleges?
Yes, that's been happening. And recently we had a situation of a sister, a hijabi sister, who was being threatened by a classmate just because she was Muslim, and he didn't like the fact that she was Muslim, and he didn't like Muslims. That was his only issue.
So she was targeted because she was wearing hijab in the class?
Yes, she was targeted by a classmate. They just started in the fall semester, and he was threatening her, saying that I would come to your workplace or so. So she contacted our office.
Okay.
We contacted the school officials, and we worked with them, and they had a mediation meeting between the students, and now it's handled. But we have situations like this of young people being targeted, and so what we do is to have anti-bullying workshops, to go to them about know your rights. What are your rights as students? What are your rights when you're talking to NYPD or FBI? To inform them and educate them so they're protected. Because our duty as a civil rights organization is to make sure that the American Muslims are protected and they know their rights. So these situations don't happen again.
So how you reach out to them? Like you go to all the colleges, you conduct workshops?
Yes.
What is the mode?
So we work with the schools or the college clubs that are there, and we've gone to colleges, we've had workshops with the colleges, and students have attended. We've also gone to mosques, we've gone to community centers where we do presentations on these topics of anti-bullying or knowing your rights, or what is Islam and what is Islamophobia. And we would talk to them and have positive discussions. They would ask us questions, we'd have some of our lawyers there, and just have a conversation of how to work with your community to address these issues.
Okay.
The last one we did was at the City University of New York Law School.
Okay.
And the conversation was how to conduct with Muslim fellow employees.
Okay.
You know, and so that was very informative for the law students that were present.
So you're saying that it's not only for the Muslim students, but other for the non-Muslim
Absolutely.
students,
Yes.
for their awareness too,
Yeah.
that the Muslim students who are studying with them, or either they're your co-workers,
Yes.
they have no intention to harm anybody.
Right, right.
So that's kind of awareness for everybody. That's
Yeah.
that's what CARE is
Absolutely.
doing.
Absolutely. In fact, the questions that we got were very interesting. As they say, if I see a woman in a niqab or a hijab, or she doesn't wear anything at all, how do I shake her hand or not shake her hand? It's as simple as that. And I said the most important thing that we could do between interfaith dialogue is ask. Say, do I shake your hand or no?
Mhm.
I prefer not. Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. And and so those kinds of communications are during Ramadan.
Okay.
Do we invite them to lunch with us or no? Say, you're allowed to say whatever you like,
Yeah.
and they're allowed to, say, well,
Reply
because of my
whatever
religious,
it's
exactly.
better for them.
So the most important thing is not to be inhibited, but to actually ask, like a human being.
Yeah.
Ask, and don't treat them as they are something from a different planet.
Okay.
They're just different human beings with different norms. And so that, I think, it was really incredible, because it seemed like a revolutionary thought
Oh, yeah.
to these law
There's
students.
so many
But all you
answers.
ask them to do is to ask
They
the
were
question.
they never got those answers, and by that your workshop you did,
Right.
they kill all the queries they had in their minds.
And the interesting thing is that they were surprised to hear. I said, I'm a Muslim man. I go up to a woman and I'd say, Assalamu alaikum, and she'll say, Assalamu alaikum, and I'll be confused by it too sometimes. So don't think that you're any different than Muslimin within the Muslim community. I mean, we have some things that we notice that we can
Yeah.
just say Assalamu alaikum, but otherwise, sometimes we're just as confused, and then what we do is we ask, Salam or no Salam? And so
we have
interesting.
time for a little short break. Ladies and gentlemen, we have very wonderful discussion with the representatives of CARE New York, and we'll take a short break. So stay tuned. When we'll come back, we'll ask them how to combat all the practices by different agencies and what we can do to fight that. Thank you very much. Stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, we are doing Umeed, and today our guests are they are from CARE New York. And my next question to Mr. Ziad is that when you are fighting against this kind of behavior, what is the response of the governmental organizations? Are they helping?
Right. Sometimes we collaborate with governmental agencies, our local elected officials, and the most important thing that we can do is give them facts and information about the truth. So, for example, if there is a situation where a governmental agency will say you have to close this masjid, it's in the 5th day of Ramadan. And so what I would do is call up our local representative and tell him or her, I'd say, listen, they just closed a masjid for an issue, a very minor issue,
Okay.
during the most holy month of the year. We must find a resolution to this immediately. This is like closing a church during Christmas.
Okay.
This is unacceptable. And so we work to address those issues very quickly. And a lot of times government is very understanding. sometimes it's not very understanding and not very helpful, like in the issue of the Ground Zero Mosque.
Okay.
You know, that
so
was,
what was the CARE's role in Ground Zero's?
Well, basically, it was just a masjid. A person owned a building
Okay.
that was 2 blocks away from where Ground
From
Zero
that
was.
site, yeah.
And he wanted to use it as a masjid on Fridays. And famous people who are anti-Muslim, called Islamophobes in America, really created a movement against it.
Yeah, it was too much in the media.
Yeah,
we were seeing it everywhere.
Yeah, it was international in the media that, you know, there's this group, it's anti. In fact, that group is very extremist in America.
Okay.
And they were actually small, but they made a really big noise in the media.
Okay.
And so CARE, and I being the president at the time, was very vocal in the media in defending their right to have a religious institution there, like any religion has the right to have a religious institution at any building that is zoned appropriately, and it was zoned appropriately.
Okay.
So basically I was defending the right of the Constitution of America for people to have and practice their religion freely. Because remember, I always said this to everywhere I spoke. I said, today it's Islam. Tomorrow it could be the Sikhs. The day after that it could be the Jews. The day after that it could be the Mormons.
Okay.
So you have to protect that right. And if you allow them to attack and you go away, that means they have set a precedent to attack other people in the future. So I really felt it was a very important ideal to stand up for the religious freedoms of that institution. And so we did that very successfully.
Okay. Ms. Sadia, you being the Director of Operations, we normally feel that as a whole, Muslim community is shy to come forward, especially after 9/11, if something is discriminatory happening to them. But in especially the Muslim women are, they're all, we can say they're afraid of, you know, coming up with any incident happen with them. So how do you address that situation?
I think what we found is that Muslim women are coming forward. So in some cases, there are Muslim women who may not know who there was a situation of a Muslim woman who was coming out of a job interview, and she was tripped by a man, and then she thought
intentionally.
Intentionally. She thought she was just being tripped, and then she walked a little bit further, and then the man pushed her pushed her again, and then he pulled her hijab. And it was in the commotion of things, she didn't understand what was going on, and then instead of catching a face, she was frightened, but he left within that time. And then when she went to approach the police officer, she didn't have a proper description, and so, but she still called us. She still called us because she wanted to let us know that this happened to me. This is the location where it happened. Can you see what you can do? So we're finding that Muslim women are actually coming forward, even if they may not know the exact description or of their attacker or so, or in cases they're letting us know because they want to let other Muslim women know that these situations are happening. But we want to encourage all Muslim women who are out there, young, old, you know, whichever situation you have that you feel you're being discriminated against, let us know. Let's work with you. If it's a situation where it's, you know, you were approached by FBI, or you were attacked on the street or in school, let us know. Let's see what we can work with. We can help you with legally, as well as informing the community. And we want to come to your mosque. We want to come to your community center and let other people know about their rights. To let us know that we're here to help you, and inshallah we can work together to combat those instances.
What I understand is that when you're reaching out to the students, which is the new generation, Muslim generation from all over the world, they have no difficulty in communication, and you're reaching out to them. But most of the people, which are the elderly population of Muslim community living here, they may be having difficulties in communicating to you. So how you're addressing that situation?
So what we have at CARE, we have staff as well as volunteers. And right now I'm getting some volunteers that are, you know, they can speak other languages, in Urdu or in Arabic or in Bangla, in any language. So that way, in Bosnian. So to make sure that if I can't speak a certain language, that I have someone who can speak to them. And inshallah, we want to make sure that if you can't, at least we can communicate with you. If you can let us know, we can get you a translator if there's a situation. And there are lawyers that we work with that speak various languages, and we can work with them to let us know. Because, you know, your language should not be a hindrance to you coming forward. If you have a situation, if you've been attacked, then we can work with you, inshallah.
Okay, so I can understand people living in city or
Yeah.
Queens, they're more, they can reach up to you. But if somebody is living in Suffolk County or farther eastern end of Long Island, I don't think so they'll be able to know about CARE.
They do.
And especially somebody which is not that familiar, an elderly person, they're
Yeah.
not familiar to internet. So is there any project in your mind to put your ads in the Urdu newspapers? Because that is the source which is accessible for all.
Yeah, that's. Can I, do you
Yeah,
mind
yeah,
if I ask
Mr.
that?
Ziad, you can answer that.
That's an interesting
You know what
question.
I'm trying to say is that
Absolutely. In fact, we answered that own question ourselves at the board of directors. What we said is we want to have more exposure outside of the city.
yeah, that's
So,
what
guess
somebody
what?
living in Suffolk East
So
may
we
not
had,
be
So we have board members from Long Island.
okay.
We have board members from upstate New York and Wappinger Falls, which is 2 hours away.
Okay.
So we have board members on the outside of the New York City area intentionally, because we do want them to help us spread the word through those communities as well, know what kind of institutions are out there that we can work with. And in fact, we've given lectures in places like Eastern Long Island, like upstate New York and Monticello,
Okay.
like in Wappinger Falls, like in Poughkeepsie. And we have other locations. For example, there's a CARE chapter in Ohio that's actually closer to Buffalo, New York than we are.
Okay.
So sometimes they go up there and they serve the Muslim community in Buffalo, New York. That's harder for us to get to. And we have that kind of sharing respect amongst our chapters, because the goal is to help the Muslim community and to help Muslimin be represented and to protect their interests and their rights.
What I'm saying is that I never personally myself saw any ad in a Pakistani, Bangla, Indian newspaper saying that if you've been to any discriminatory behavior by any governmental agency or anywhere in your workplace, you should contact CARE.
Right.
So that's a suggestion, or if
That's
you wanna
wonderful.
look- yeah.
And we take that as a suggestion,
Yeah.
and that's really wonderful. The fact is that there are numerous newspapers around the New York City area and outside the New York City area, and I think you just gave us a very good idea. We have done that before
Yeah.
in certain newspapers at certain times, depending on the absolute needs. And so we are pursuing that, and I think that we're going to focus more on the outlying areas.
Okay.
Yeah.
So coming up to your how CARE functions, who donates you? Did you
Right.
get any funds from the U.S. government?
Mhm.
How's that work?
The CARE overall and at a chapter level predominantly get their funding from the community that
Okay.
they serve, predominantly. And there are a few of them, there are a few that write grants to the government, and the government might give them civil rights. Like if you're an organization that advocates for people's constitutional rights or civil rights, the government might give you a small grant to help do that. There are governmental agencies that do that. Or perform an interfaith dialogue and functions for the betterment of society. There are grants that do that. So some of them do get grants, and we have gotten grants like that before at CARE New York as well. But generally speaking, I would say if you were to go to 90% of the chapters in America, they would say we get almost exclusively our grants from the community. Muslims are very interesting in America. They pay for everything that they do.
Yeah.
Whether it's build their masajid or start their organizations. And I really think that it's time to recognize, because I think that that's a weakness in our community, the fact that we feel that we have to pay for everything.
Yeah.
When all the other communities say, we want to build this organization, it's going to help our community, our society, we pay taxes, so we want to go to our government and ask for a grant, because that's what the Jewish communities are doing, and the Christian communities, and every other communities. And we have to be able to do the same thing if we want to be treated and viewed as similar and equal to everybody else. So I really think that we should start making more of an effort to go after government grants.
Yeah, so right now you are getting just from the community, very less
Right.
portion from the government, that's
Right.
what you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay. And since community is paying, one of the concern is that how that money, every dollar is spent. So how can you defend that?
Well, I can tell you that I don't want to say that we're cheap, but what we do is this. For example, we have legal service. In other words, people call us up with a legal complaint, and what we do is we connect them to great attorneys
Okay.
who work pro bono, which means for free.
Okay.
So if, for example, if someone was to donate $1,000 to our organization, right, it would go for the general operations, for the rent, for the employee pay, for the electricity, for the bills of the utilities, et cetera, et cetera. Now, if someone in their family was to get into trouble and they needed a lawyer, we can possibly get them a lawyer and save them tens of thousands of dollars.
So you're saying,
the
so
return
you're
on
saying you're
investment,
providing the lawyers only to those who are donating to care?
absolutely not.
Okay.
Even if you've never donated to care and have no intention of donating to care, if
Still you
you're-
can get.
Of course, because the thing is this, our job is to, negligent of what you look like or what you've given, if you come to us for legal advice and you're a Muslim who needs legal support or advice, or you've been discriminated against, we're going to try to protect your interest because it is the right thing to do. It has nothing to do with how much money you gave us or not. There are some people who've given us a lot of money that's never come to us for advice because they've been taking care of their own situations, or alhamdulillah there is no problem in their lives. And there are other people who've never given us anything and have no intention, and many cases have come to us that we've taken care of for them. So we don't do things on the amount of money that anybody gives, no. But it is vital for the community to understand that this is an agency that will fight for your rights all the time, whether discriminated against, or if there's a legal case that you have or you need representation in a case that has something to do with the rights and discrimination. We don't do immigration issues unless you've been discriminated at the airport, for instance. So those are the kind of issues that we do pick up in connection with that. But it has to do with you being targeted as a Muslim and being underserved or negatively treated.
So we have very short time left. And just last question, that how do you see those agencies, CARE is different from them who are not actually, who are trying to tell that they are doing good for the community, but actually they are doing otherwise. So how do you differentiate CARE from those kind of?
Yeah, there's a lot of organizations in America that do tremendous work. You know, ICNA does great relief work. You know, they go to wherever there's a tornado or there's a flood, and they've done tremendous work and they've been acknowledged for their work. You know, CARE is recognized as the recognized by American Muslimin as the #1 organization that supports their interest. There are other organizations, unfortunately, though they think they're doing good work for the community, sometimes really harm the community. You know, I can tell you one incident of a situation that really troubled me. Is an organization here in New York had it was a law enforcement training for teenagers, and they were putting young teenagers in the room with law enforcement, meaning not only the police, but the FBI,
federal agents too,
and Department of Homeland Security. And I'm saying, I wouldn't let my child at that age cross the street alone. You're putting them into a room with the FBI? Are you insane? And the Jewish community would never do this. The Christian community would never do this. No other community would ever do this. Why that organization did that for our community, I thought was extremely harmful and sets a really bad precedent for how things should be done. We should always stand on the side of justice, always stand on the right side of haqq and the right, and always defend our interests.
So by this, we are just coming to the end of the program, and I thank you, Mr. Ziad, for coming over and giving such information which is very useful for our audience, especially for the Muslim community, which is not coming forward for any kind of discriminatory behavior doing with that. And thank you very much, Ms. Sadia, for being here, and we are wishing you very best of luck and keep working for the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
जी नाज़रीन, आपने देखा होगा कि आज हमने केयर न्यूयॉर्क के जो ओहदेदारान थे उनसे बात की है, और बहुत ही मालूमाती किस्म की जो मटीरियल उन्होंने प्रोवाइड किया है कि अगर आपके साथ किसी किस्म का भी कोई ऐसा सलूक आपके वर्क प्लेस पे या आपकी स्कूल जॉब पे कहीं भी जहां आप समझ रहे हैं कि आपको सिर्फ मज़हब की वजह से निशाना बनाया जा रहा है, तो आप केयर न्यूयॉर्क को गूगल कर सकते हैं और वो किसी किस्म की हेल्प के लिए आप उनको कॉल कर सकते हैं, और हम उम्मीद करते हैं कि वो आपकी हेल्प करेंगे। और मैं आखिर में इस उम्मीद के साथ ये आपको ये मैसेज दूंगा कि ये एक आज़ाद मुल्क है और आपके राइट्स को यहाँ बहुत प्रोटेक्ट किया जाता है, तो खौफज़दा होने की ज़रूरत नहीं है। अमेरिका एक बहुत यूनिक मुल्क है, आगे आइए, अपना हक तलब कीजिए और उसके लिए आप खड़े हों और ये मुल्क आपको आपका हक देगा। इस उम्मीद के साथ अपनी आरा से आप हमें आगाह करेंगे। हमारा ईमेल एड्रेस आप अपनी स्क्रीन पर देख रहे होंगे, umeed@ajusa.com। हमें अपनी आरा से मुताला कीजिएगा। अपना और अपने गिरदनवा का ख्याल रखिए। खुदा हाफिज़।